True Story Media.
Hey, it's Britt. I hope you've had a chance to listen to the Lou story. It is so powerful, and Lou and I have been talking almost every day. It's been really incredible to watch how empowering sharing her story has been for her. There's more episodes of Season 2 coming your way. In the meantime, I wanted to share a podcast that was so intriguing to me. It's very different than my story, but the Confessions of Anthony Raimondi will keep you hooked. Once I started listening, I couldn't stop. Stay tuned. We have more episodes on the way. Enjoy the first episode of the Confessions of Anthony Raimondi.
This episode is brought to you by Tic Tac. Close your eyes and take a ride with new Tic Tac Citrus Adventure. Awaken your senses with harmonies of sour and tangy fruit flavors. Picture the vibrant trio of mandarin, lemon, and lime as each flavor mingles to create a refreshing symphony. Pick up a pack and dive into new Tic Tac Citrus Adventure. Visit @TicTacUSA on social to share the good vibes.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Where is the closest Catholic church to you right now? I bet you could get there in less than 20 minutes. Whether you're at home or at work, in your car or out for a walk, whether you're in a big city or small town, any place in the world, either hemisphere, it doesn't matter. There's a Catholic church nearby. There are almost 1.5 billion Catholics in the world, a population equal to China. And ministering to all those Catholics are more than 400,000 priests, who report to more than 5,000 bishops, who report to around 650 archbishops and cardinals, and they all report to one man, the Pope. He oversees a vast empire of wealth. His church is one of the largest landowners in the world. The Pope has the power to influence world leaders. Popes have changed the course of history. Anyway, I've been thinking about all of this way too much lately. I have a stack of books on the subject next to my bed. It's been keeping me up at night. And it's all because of this guy.
I wish you guys could have seen this neighborhood years ago. If you guys would have seen this neighborhood years ago, you would have loved it, believe me.
This is Anthony.
Raimondi, okay?
Anthony Raimondi. Anthony has a story to tell about a pope in the Catholic Church, and we'll get to that. But today, Anthony has invited my producer Zach and I on a tour of his old neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York. He wants to show us something.
I know, if you want to come in the car with me.
Yeah. You want to go?
Yeah, whenever you guys are ready, whatever you want to do.
Anthony's a big guy, approaching 70 years old, with slick-back salt and pepper hair. And he dresses like a gangster, because Anthony was a gangster. He says he used to be a made member of the Italian mafia in Brooklyn. Today, Anthony's sporting a shiny black tracksuit, a gold bracelet, and dark sunglasses. Think of Big Pussy from The Sopranos.
All right, is it ready?
Yep, we're ready. We hop in Anthony's muscle car, a Dodge Challenger, all black.
Let's go.
When Anthony grew up here in the 1950s, this was a working-class neighborhood. He calls it South Brooklyn. By the time I moved here in the early 90s, people had started calling it Park Slope.
I used to live right down there.
Oh, you
in the
kidding?
carriage house, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Right across.
You were
Across
really in the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
And the neighborhood has changed a lot over the years. These days, your kid will need to be on a wait list to get into daycare. And everywhere you look, there seems to be an artisanal coffee shop where you can buy a $6 cup of coffee.
I was talking with somebody about it, and they say, Anthony, it's called progress. I said, but you killed the neighborhood.
But one place hasn't changed. The local Catholic church, like the one I got married in.
I got married, the church was the one down on 6th Avenue. Big stone church, beautiful, Catholic.
It might have been St. Augustine's.
Yeah, it might have been St.
It might have
Augustine's.
been St. Augustine's.
And it turns out the St. Augustine's Church is where Anthony is taking us right now.
There is St. Augustine's Church. That's the stone church.
That's where I got
there.
married. Oh, my
St.
God,
Augustine's.
so weird. What a small world, huh?
St. Augustine's. I did my communion there. I did my confirmation there also.
Anthony pulls into a parking spot.
Now, St. Augustine's School is connected right onto it. I'll show you.
He struggles out of his car. He's had some health issues lately, so he walks slowly with the help of a cane. He leads us toward the building behind the church, St. Augustine's School.
See that top floor right there? Mm-hmm. You see there's the open window over there, and then right next to you see the open windows?
Anthony has brought us to St. Augustine's to tell us a story about something that happened here. Not a crime story about a mob hit or a famous heist. A more personal story from when he was just 7 years old.
That's where our class was, right? I was at the last window over here. 1, 2, 3, right up there.
Nine days before Christmas in 1960, Anthony was sitting in his second grade classroom.
There was the big blackboard in front, and then there was all the seats with the benches. If you were bad, you had to sit near the window.
And that day, Anthony was sitting by the window.
I remember it was in the morning. Mrs. Piccarelli, she's writing something on the blackboard, and we heard this explosion. So me, I want to see what's on there. I want to see what's there. It sounded like a rocket, kept coming and getting louder and louder.
And that's when Anthony says he saw something unbelievable. A passenger jet flying by his classroom window. So close, he says, he saw the passengers inside.
You heard people screaming on the plane. You could actually hear people screaming. Oh yeah, you can hear them screaming. And it hit the window, and I got the glass came in my face. That's how close it was. That's when the building shook. The nuns came in and said, everybody's got to leave the building. We have to leave the building. There was fire engines all over the place. Alarms were going off. You couldn't see the sun. You couldn't see light from all the smoke. The sky was totally black.
December 16, 1960. Only a few days before Christmas, two commercial airliners collide in the sky above New York City. One plane carrying 84 passengers falls on the Park Slope section of Brooklyn. Many thought that nearby St. Augustine's School, where 1,700 children were attending classes, had been bombed. The jet fuel was coming down the block this way, and you could see the snow actually melting. It was on fire when it came down. It took out the Pillar of Fire church. It took part of their roof off. There was the laundromat, the candy store, the funeral parlor, and there was 14 brownstones that went out. And I'll tell you, there was a guy, I'll show you the spot, who was selling Christmas trees. When the plane hit, they never found his body. The ambulance that took me to the hospital, it was parked over there, the ambulance. They looked at me and they seen all the glass in my head. And then they see they put another kid in the ambulance with me. This kid was burned so bad, you did not know if he was black or white. That's how bad he was burned, and his kid was still alive. He actually fell out of the plane between 6th and 7th Avenue. He died the next day.
And this is when Anthony takes a beat, and his story takes an unexpected turn.
Now, when they put me in the ambulance, as I'm going down, and you could think I'm crazy, people think I'm crazy when they hear this, whoever, I kept telling them that I seen somebody standing on the plane.
Just to be clear, Anthony's saying that he saw a man riding on top of a crashing plane.
First time I seen him on the plane, standing on the plane, because I was looking out the window. The second time I seen him was when they were bringing me in the ambulance. He was walking down the block. And I kept telling them, there he is, there he is. They said, who? I said, the guy on the plane. They all thought I was nuts. I said, the guy on the plane. He just kept on going down the block, and he faded away.
Anthony believes that the man he saw standing on that plane and then walking down the street that day wasn't a man at all.
That was death on the plane. I don't care what anybody tells me. Whether you want to call him death, whether you want to call him the angel of death. In the Jewish religion, they call him the Machamovis, they call him. He wasn't a skeleton. His skin was pulled so tight on his face that you could see, like the bone, the structure of the bones and everything. My mother and father, they had sent me to a psychiatrist, for 3 years. My father took me to psychiatrists in Manhattan, Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn. They all said the same thing. It's one or two things happen. Either I had, from the shock of the plane, that I put this in my head, what I supposedly seen, or they said he really seen it. That's the only two answers they could give. Nobody could give another answer. I know what I saw.
As I've gotten to know Anthony, he's told me a lot of stories like this one. Stories rooted in truth. There was a plane crash in Park Slope back then. But his stories often grow to biblical proportions. Death appears to 7-year-old Anthony like one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Only instead of the pale horse death rides in the Bible, Anthony's version of death rides a crashing airplane.
I know he's the one that's going to come for me when my time comes. He's going to come and get me. It ain't going to be my mother or my father. No, it's going to be him. I'm telling you, it's going to be him when I go. That much I do know.
And Anthony tells another unbelievable story, one that he thinks will come back to haunt him on Judgment Day. It's the story that's been keeping me up at night, about corruption and murder at the highest level of one of the world's oldest and most powerful institutions, the Vatican.
You know what's going to happen to me when I die? I'm going to go to heaven. God's going to say, nah, fuck you. You killed one of my popes. You're talking about killing a fucking pope.
I'm Mark Smerling, and these are the Confessions of Anthony Raimondi.
Just after 7:30, and here's Laurie Macmillan with a summary of the news.
Pope John Paul I is dead.
The public speculation that this death was not natural grew by the minute. Men and women were heard shouting as they passed the body, "Who has done this to you? Who has murdered you?"
When is a central bank not a central bank? When is a private bank public and a public bank private? Sound mysterious and full of secrets? Well, that's the Vatican Bank.
The Vatican Bank over the last 100 years or so has not been without scandal, certain dirty dealings, certainly money laundering.
If the mafia wished to bring some of their clean money into Italy, they used Vatican Bank channels.
The Pope Luciani was contemplating cleaning up the Vatican Bank. Well, obviously, he passed away before he was able to do it. He only lasted 33 days.
You may have seen the movie Godfather 3.
Yeah.
It's sort of loosely based on what happened during that time.
You don't mess with the mafia.
Chapter 1, Genesis.
Hey, it's Britt. I wanted to take a minute to tell you about Hungry Root. Since the kids moved out and it's just me to feed, my nutrition and wallet have taken a hit, and I started eating out frequently. I wanted to find a way to cook at home that made sense without a lot of wasted time and food. Hungry Root has incredible recipes that I can make in 15 minutes. They meet all my nutritional needs. I order extra smoothies and snacks, and it's easy to grab and take with me on the go. One of my favorite features is being able to swap out individual items in the recipes to create the perfect meal for me. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box. Plus, get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Brittany and use code Brittany. That's hungryroot.com/Brittany. Code Brittany, BRITTANI, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/Brittany. I want to take a minute and talk about hormone harmony. It isn't just for menopause, even though I was thrown into that last year. Finding a product that helps regulate my symptoms has been so crucial. Whether it's hot flashes, night sweats, or those racing thoughts and low moods, I've been able to use Hormone Harmony to help me feel like myself again. This isn't just a product for somebody that's going through menopause. It can help you at any stage in your life to help maintain optimal hormone levels. I also love Happy Mammoth's Complete Gut Repair. With the Complete Gut Repair, when I'm traveling, I can make sure that I continue to feel like myself, even with the time zone changes and dysregulation to my sleep. For a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com using the code YouProbably at checkout. That's happymammoth.com with the code YouProbably. Today's episode is sponsored by Acorns. Last year, save more money was the #1 New Year's resolution in America, but it is so hard to do. I have never been able to easily save money. Acorns makes it so you can start automatically saving and investing your money, giving it a chance to grow for you, your kids, and your retirement. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that fits you and your money goals. You don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you invest with the spare money you've got right now. You can even start with $5 or your spare change. Head to acorns.com/youprobably or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. This is a paid, non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 2 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/youprobably.
Let me tell you how I first heard about Anthony Raimondi. A few weeks before that day in Brooklyn, I got an email from a guy at NBC Universal named Josh. He works on podcasts there. It said, "Hi, Mark. We are greenlighting a fascinating series involving the mafia and Vatican, a deathbed confession from a mafia enforcer, and an alleged papal assassination. It's the kind of story that I think is right up your alley and would love to discuss." I gave Josh a call, and that's when I learned that Anthony had published a book about his life as a made member of a New York mafia family. It's called When the Bullet Hits the Bone, subtitle, The Incredible and Possibly True Stories of the Last Mafia Enforcer. In it, Anthony puts himself in the center of mafia folklore. He says he's related to mafia royalty, a Sicilian mobster named Lucky Luciano, who many people believe founded American organized crime. And Anthony says as a kid, he was close to Lucky's partner, a guy named Meyer Lansky. Lansky was the model for the character Hyman Roth in The Godfather 2. And toward the end of his book, Anthony tells a story about the murder of a pope. I'll be honest, it's a really fun read. Then I check out Anthony online. I find articles in tabloids from around the world, the New York Post, the Daily Mail, the New Zealand Herald, with headlines like, "Meet the mobster who says he helped whack a pope." After he published his book, Anthony went on kind of a publicity tour. Only instead of appearing on the morning talk shows, Anthony did interviews on a whole bunch of mafia fan YouTube channels I never knew existed.
Your uncle was no ordinary, he's one of the most famous...
Oh, Uncle Lucky.
Some of these videos got millions of views.
Uncle Lucky, yeah. Mm-hmm. This is Lucky Luciano, for those of you who haven't figured it out, and he's one of the most famous gangsters.
Uncle Lucky was my my father's mother. That was her half-brother.
In all of these interviews, Anthony sports his black tracksuit, his gold chains, dark sunglasses, and he carries a huge unlit cigar.
In your book, you said, Lansky taught me so many ways of shaking down a guy, but he also taught me a lot of ways to actually kill a guy, because Meyer Lansky was deadly.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Meyer taught me a lot of things.
And these interviewers all ended up asking Anthony the same thing.
This is crazy with the Pope stuff. Basically, what you're saying is the mob killed the Pope.
Yeah.
I decide to call my producer, Zach, and make a date for us to meet Anthony Raimondi for the first time. Feel the guy out, see what's what.
To the corner of your mouth, okay? Yes.
Oh, boy.
You want to maybe scoot that way just a little bit?
Yeah.
It's a sunny afternoon when Zach and I meet Anthony in a conference room in Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
How you been feeling?
Yeah, some days good, some days bad. I got done with my chemo,
Anthony's sporting his usual attire and the cigar.
It's crazy. Ever since I got the COVID, I haven't been right. I was in the hospital for it. I don't remember my first 6 days. They didn't think I was going to make it. Meanwhile, I had to get 2 transfusions because my blood levels keep dropping. I wound up getting an infection. Then they put the pacemaker in. But it's like my father says, or my father used to say, no matter what you do in this world, you're going to pay a price. After he died, I realized what he was talking about.
Yeah, what is he talking about?
It don't make a difference. If he turns around upstairs and says, yeah, you did this good, but I don't like what you did here, well, you're going to have a little bit of a problem now.
After Anthony talks about his latest health problems, I ask him to start at the beginning, when he was growing up in Brooklyn.
Now, my grandfather had the house on Baltic Street between 3rd and 4th Avenue. It was 8 family, but it was only family living in there. There was like me, my mother, and my father, my grandfather, my grandmother, my Aunt Nanny and her husband, my Aunt Judy and her husband, Uncle Frank and his wife.
So it was all around you when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah. Everything goes back to the old country.
By old country, Anthony means Sicily.
Now, we had an Uncle Ralph Guido. Uncle Ralph was a member in the Black Hand.
And by Black Hand, Anthony is talking about the Sicilian mafia.
My grandfather Frank Cassa was. My grandfather Antonio was. They were old school, these guys, and I'm telling you, seriously, old school. Whatever they say they done, they say, who said they're killers and they killed this guy and that guy, to me, it was my family. This is all I knew.
As Anthony goes on, I start to wonder if I'm really looking at an old mobster, or if this is some kind of elaborate performance. And I'm his captive audience.
But they put me with my cousin Mac because I was getting into a lot of trouble.
Anthony drops a name I recognize. Mac, as in Hugh McIntosh, a notorious mob enforcer.
He brought me down to the Diplomat, and Joe Colombo came in one day, and Tom DeBella was there. There was the Colombo family, Scappy, everybody's there. So first time I went
It quickly becomes clear that Anthony remembers every mobster he ever met.
I saw Joe Mayo. They called him Yogi.
And their nicknames.
They called him Top because he was tops at what he'd done. There's a guy, they called him the Gorilla. They called him Catfish. Frankie, I forgot his last name, but they call him Frankie Blue Eyes. He's in the Witness Protection Program.
He remembers every spot in Brooklyn where all his stories took place.
The Stabber Club was on 3rd Avenue between 85th, and we went to Honey's Garage. Honey had a place on Cavill Street between 3rd and 7th. It was the Desiree After Hour Club. Cousin Max says, he goes, come on, he says, 7th Street and 5th Avenue.
And Anthony got into a ton of trouble.
I got arrested, my Uncle Frank got arrested, his girlfriend got arrested, my Uncle Sal got arrested, my Aunt Mary. He opens up his jacket and I see he grabs the gun. I just picked up it and I just emptied the whole gun. Okay, I'm screwed. They blow your head off, your mother's gonna have to have a close coffin guy with adults. Maybe crazy, but I ain't freaking stupid.
You're losing me. So this guy... These stories fly by, and I have a lot of questions. But before I can say anything, Anthony has moved on to the next chapter.
So I'm at the house, and my father says, you got a call. I said, from who? He goes, from Italy.
It's the story we came here for.
Fuck's calling me from Italy? Your cousin Luigi. He's in the Vatican.
Back in the conference room in Brooklyn, Anthony Raimondi describes how he first got involved in crimes with the Vatican. His story starts in 1975 with a call from another family member, a Catholic cardinal also named Raimondi, Luigi Raimondi.
Tell me about Luigi. He's actually your cousin?
Actually, yeah, that was Luigi Raimondi, yes.
He's working in the Vatican?
So he is in the Vatican. He was one of the guys that was becoming, what do you call it, the cardinals. He lived in the Vatican.
And Anthony says that Cardinal Raimondi had called him with an offer he couldn't refuse.
They got the forger from the mafia, from one of the mafia guys. They got the stocks, the AT&T, IBM. I says,
according to Anthony, Luigi and some of his friends in the Vatican were running a counterfeiting scam.
He goes, if you got somebody in the stock market, I can send you a ton of stocks. You keep your end, you give us our end.
And they needed help selling these forged stocks in the United States.
I says, yeah, we'll make a ton of money.
Why does Luigi call you?
Because I was the guy that they were bringing up in the family to be the gangster, you understand? And they liked me. But the fact is, they loved my grandfather, Antonio. Now he sends me a batch, $100,000 certificates and stocks. Every one of them was a forgery.
With the help of some of his mafia-connected friends, Anthony says he gave the forged stocks to shady brokers, who then sold them to unwitting investors.
They were bringing them a ton of money. And what we're doing was sending the money overseas to Italy now.
And Anthony says that his cousin told him that the counterfeiting scam went right to the top of the Vatican.
So now I find out that Pope Paul VI knew about this. They're working together.
And everybody was making a lot of money, until Anthony got some news about one of his connected friends.
And guess what he done? He fucking ratted us all out.
Scam was over at that point.
Oh yeah, scam was over.
According to Anthony, his partners in the Vatican shut the scam down, and the cops never showed up at his door. Then, just 3 years later,
what happens is Pope Paul VI dies. Pope John Paul I gets in. Now he becomes the Pope. They go through the whole process. Okay, he's the Pope.
Anthony says that Pope John Paul I was a very different kind of Pope, an honest one.
Pope John Paul I said, and these are his words, everybody and anybody who was involved in the stock fraud and the scam, I am defrocking them and excommunicating them from the church, which meant now they're falling under Italian law.
And that's when Anthony says his grandfather got another call from the Vatican.
My grandfather, he goes, we got to get rid of the Pope. We got to kill him. What are you fucking crazy? Kill the Pope? Are you out of your fucking mind? Excuse my language, but he says, let me tell you something. He goes, for as long as we've had popes, we've been killing popes throughout history. If we didn't like them, we kill them and we put our own guy in there. I said, Jesus Christ, they're going to kill the Pope. I said, all right. I said, good luck with it. My grandfather goes, no. He goes, you got to go with him. I got to go with him. I said, I'm not killing no fucking Pope, Papa. I mean, I don't care on the streets. On the street, you're loan shark and Shylock, and you got a problem with a guy, the guy gets whacked. Who gives a shit, you know? We're talking about the Pope. This is the guy who could, like, supposedly directly talks to God. But my grandfather turned around and says, you're my grandson. I love you. You gotta go. Just when he said it like that, I knew I had to go.
A few days later, Anthony says the mastermind of the entire conspiracy showed up at his door.
Marcinkus, Paul Jacob Marcinkus, who is the head of the Vatican Bank. I was okay. I said, what am I going there for? He goes, show us how to take him out in a nice way.
Anthony says that reluctantly, he flew with Marcinkus to Rome to come up with a plan to take out the new pope in a nice way.
These guys are nothing like New York guys, let me tell you. He says, now how do we put him at rest? We want you to tell us how we can do it without pain and without him suffering. And you're gonna love this. And you are gonna be our, what was that word he used? Our witness before God. I'm gonna be your witness before God. What the fuck you talking about? When we die, God is gonna say, you killed one of my popes. He never suffered. He went peacefully. And then we can stay in, they call it paradise, we'll call it heaven, but we could stay with God. And I'm saying to myself, how did I get into this mess? I said, what's his whole schedule? He goes here, he goes there. He goes, all right. At nighttime, he always liked tea, but he liked it extra sweet. That's okay. I says, here's what we can do. I says, can you get liquid Valium? He says, yeah. All right, bring him his tea and you have liquid Valium in it. But the tea's got to be really sweet. He goes, he likes it really sweet because, you know, liquid Valium doesn't have a taste, but sometimes it's a little hint that This doesn't taste right.
According to Anthony, the Valium would put the Pope in a deep sleep, so he wouldn't feel what was coming next.
I says, can you get cyanide, potassium cyanide? If you have a high level of potassium in your body, you're gone, you're dead.
That night, Anthony says the Pope went to bed as he usually did, after he had his tea.
The Pope is out like a light. The captain of the Swiss Guards comes over, they shake hands, and I can see the thing bottle.
And now Anthony says that it was Paul Jacob Marcinkus' job to get the deadly deed done.
He gets the bottle, he opens it up, fills up the eyedropper, puts it like this in between here and just squeeze it once, put the back on, walks out, he closes the door. Now we're standing there. All right? He says the guy's got to come back and check on him. The Pope is sick. All of a sudden, doctors, this one, that one comes over. They examine him. They're doing like CPR on his chest. They're doing this, everything. Pope is dead. Pope died. Yeah, I had to stay. I had to stay. Because I had to see this to be a witness before God for them.
At this point, I look over at Zach and notice the floor-to-ceiling window beyond him. It's dark outside. I glance at my phone and see a screen filled with missed calls and text messages. And I realize we've been talking for 5 hours. But Anthony just keeps going. It's starting to feel like he's auditioning for a role he's always wanted.
I have to call it for today.
Yes.
As we leave, we share the elevator to the lobby.
You have to lift this up and push it down.
Before we reach the ground floor, Anthony takes out an old switchblade and hands it to me.
It's a switchblade that belonged to my Uncle Lucky.
As in Lucky Luciano, one of the most famous wise guys of all time.
That tip is in, what's his name, is in Maranzano's rib.
The tip of the blade is broken off. He says it's from when Lucky stabbed a guy and it broke off in his ribs. I snap the knife closed and hand it back to him as we exit the elevator and walk out of the building. Zach and I stand in the dark, watching Anthony limp away down the sidewalk toward a waiting black car. The next day, I start looking for someone who can vouch for Anthony. Anthony says he was a member of the Colombo crime family. There aren't many of those guys left, but I managed to find one guy high up in the Colombos, and I write him a letter. It wasn't too hard to find him. He's serving a life sentence in federal prison. I write, I'm researching the connection between organized crime and the Vatican. My interest begins with a possible associate of yours, Anthony Raimondi, who wrote a book in which he claims that he was a member of the Colombo crime family and that he helped murder a pope. I was sure this guy would know Hugh McIntosh, the Colombo enforcer Anthony says was his cousin. So I mention Mac in the letter. Then I make my pitch. You may be the only guy around who can tell me who Anthony really is or isn't. So I'm asking for your help. I seal the envelope, address it, not forgetting the inmate number, and drop it in the mailbox.
Hey, Mark, what's up?
Hey, listen, I'm going to record this phone call, okay?
Ooh, okay.
A week or so later, I call Zach.
I got some news. So, remember I sent a letter to...
Oh, yeah, the guy in the Colombo family, yeah.
He texted me from prison.
Apparently, gangsters can text from prison now.
Yeah, apparently they have phones in prison.
Can you read it to me?
He says, as a small courtesy, I'm replying to your request received 6/6/2023. I do not recall the person you mentioned.
At first, the guy texted back that he had no memory of Anthony Raimondi. But as I predicted, he did know Hugh McIntosh, and he remembered that Hugh had a cousin named Anthony. After a few back and forths, I realized that the Anthony this guy remembers is not Anthony Raimondi. Then he asked me if I know Anthony's nickname. He says back then, everybody had a nickname.
Okay, so then I looked through Anthony's book and found his nickname back when he was in the Colombo crime family, and it was Pluto. So I write back that Anthony's nickname was Pluto, and he writes back to me. Yes, I found out that was who you were referring to. I was thinking of another cousin to McIntosh. Obviously, he knows who Pluto is.
Yeah, definitely. So he's kind of in a roundabout way saying two things. He's saying, yes, I remember Anthony Raimondi, and yes, he was a cousin to Hugh McIntosh.
Exactly.
That's something.
Yeah, it is, I guess.
You're not convinced?
No, but then he wrote me back. He says, as I'm not a fan of any books on such a topic because most are inaccurate to various degrees, I cannot wish you any type of luck or success in your endeavor.
Well, it's kind of intense.
Maybe this Anthony Raimondi podcast gets me killed.
Later that night, this guy sent me one final text message. It simply said, I do request that you do not contact me again for any reason. Stay safe. Next time on the Confessions of Anthony Raimondi, we learn a lot more about Anthony.
So Mac took him in, and he just started to get wiser and wiser and wiser and doing more and more and more, and he wound up with them. What can I say?
You remember his nickname?
Pluto.
And we learn a little about Pope John Paul I.
Huge mountain climber.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah. He scaled his last, a mountain outside of Trento about 6 or 7 months before he died.
So he was a fit guy.
Right.
The Confessions of Anthony Raimondi is a USG Audio and Truth Media podcast in partnership with Clockwork Film. The show is produced by Alexa Burke, Kenny Cusiak, and Kevin Shepard. Zach St. Louis is our senior producer. Mark Smerling, that's me, is your host and story editor. Executive producers are Josh Block from USG Audio, Jamie Cohen, Naomi Harvey, and Rob Huxley from Clockwork Films, and me, Mark Smerling. Scott Curtis is our production manager. Production support from Josh Lalongi at USG Audio. Fact-checking by Dania Suleiman. Sound design and mixing by Kenny Cusiak. Music by Universal Production Music, Marmoset, and Kenny Cusiak. Our title track is Big Fish by Kenny Cusiak. Legal review by Linda Steinman and Abigail Overdell at Davis Wright Tremaine. If you've enjoyed the Confessions of Anthony Raimondi, leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps other people find the show. And thanks for listening.